The huge meeting room was silent. 12 Tellurians sat around the oval table, their blue skin looking pale under the bright lights. Elder Han stood at the head of the table, his 4 arms resting on the smooth surface. "The reports are clear," he said. "The plague has reached the outer colonies. We have lost contact with Outpost 7. We must assume everyone there is dead." Science Director June tapped her data screen. "Our best models show the entire alliance will be infected within 200 days. Our current treatments only slow the disease. We have no cure." The room stayed quiet. The Tellurian Alliance had ruled 17 star systems for over 2,000 years. They had cured countless diseases. They had technology that could move planets. But now, a tiny virus was killing them all. "We have one option left," said Elder Han. His voice was steady, but his lower arms trembled slightly. "The uncontacted species in System 4872. The humans." Captain Kim, head of the military council, stood up immediately. "That breaks our most sacred law. We never contact developing worlds." "We are dying, Captain," Han replied. "Our laws will mean nothing if our civilization ends." Medical Officer Song pulled up images on the main screen. Earth appeared, a blue and green planet spinning slowly. "Our observation data shows humans are unusual. They are primitive in technology, but advanced in other ways. They still fight wars over resources and beliefs," said Captain Kim. "They poison their own world. They are barely space-capable." "Yes," agreed Song. "But they also have surprising abilities. They solve problems in unusual ways. They think differently than us." Science Director June laughed without humor. "You suggest we ask primitives to solve what our best minds cannot. This is desperation." "It is," said Elder Han. "And desperation is where we stand." The council voted. The decision was made. They would break their oldest law and contact Earth. Captain Kim's ship emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. It was a small vessel designed for stealth and speed. Beside him, Medical Officer Song prepared the communication systems. "I still think this is a mistake," Kim said. "Even if they have some unique thinking processes, their medicine is thousands of years behind ours." Song adjusted her uniform. "Did you study the reports? These humans have something unusual. They make unexpected connections. They use intuition alongside logic. Our science is based on perfect mathematics and careful steps. Theirs is messier, but sometimes more creative. Creativity won't cure a plague that resists our most advanced treatments," Kim replied. "Maybe that's exactly what we need," Song said quietly. For 3 days, they observed Earth's communications. They learned languages, studied cultures, and watched how humans interacted. The more they saw, the more confused they became. "They fight and kill each other over tiny differences," Kim noted. "Yet they also risk their lives to save complete strangers." "They are contradictory," agreed Song. "Perhaps that is their strength." After careful consideration, they chose their contact point, a research station in Antarctica. It was isolated, staffed with scientists from many nations, and away from population centers. If something went wrong, the damage could be contained. Dr. Lee was working late in his lab when the lights flickered. At first, he thought it was just another power issue. The Antarctic Research Station often had problems during storms. But then his computer screen showed something strange. Unknown symbols flashing across it. He reached for the phone to call security when a voice came from his speakers. "Dr. Lee, please remain calm. We mean no harm." Lee froze. The voice sounded artificial, like a very good translation program. "Who is this? How did you hack our systems?" "We are not hackers. We are visitors. From beyond your solar system." Lee laughed. "Right. Is this Park from engineering? Your pranks are getting better." The air in the center of the lab shimmered. Lee stepped back as a figure appeared, humanoid but clearly not human. Tall and thin with blue skin, 4 arms, and large oval eyes. Lee fell back against his desk, knocking equipment to the floor. The creature didn't move. "Dr. Lee, please do not be afraid. I am Medical Officer Song of the Tellurian Alliance. We have come seeking help." Lee stared, his heart racing. After a moment, he found his voice. "You're real. You're actually real." "Yes, and we are dying." Within hours, the station was in chaos. Security teams surrounded the lab. Government officials joined emergency video calls. But Dr. Lee insisted on continuing to talk with the alien visitor. A second Tellurian had appeared, Captain Kim, who seemed more cautious than Song. Together, they explained their situation. "The plague began on our central world," Song said. "It attacks our neural pathways. The infected lose motor control first, then memory, and finally basic functions. Death comes within weeks. Our medical science is far beyond yours," Captain Kim added. His tone made it clear he didn't believe humans could help. "We have tried thousands of treatments. Nothing works. The pathogen evolves too quickly." Dr. Lee, still struggling to accept he was talking to aliens, asked the obvious question. "Why come to us? We're clearly less advanced." Song's large eyes blinked slowly. "Because you think differently. Our science is based on logic and precision. We follow established patterns, but this plague doesn't follow patterns." "You're saying you need creativity?" Lee asked. "Perhaps, or perspective, something we cannot see." Dr. Park, the station's epidemiologist, had joined them. She spoke up for the first time. "You're suggesting your own advanced thinking is too structured to solve this. That seems hard to believe." Captain Kim made a gesture that might have been frustration. "We have analyzed billions of possible solutions. Our AI systems have simulated trillions more. Nothing works." "Sometimes," Dr. Lee said, "the answer isn't in the data. It's in seeing the data differently." Lee made a decision. He contacted his old colleague, Dr. Ba, a geneticist in Seoul. Then he called Jin, a brilliant data analyst who had worked with him years ago. They needed the best team possible. 3 days later, a secure facility had been established. Government leaders around the world were still arguing about how to handle first contact, but the scientists had been given permission to begin work. The Tellurian ship had landed, bringing samples of the pathogen in secure containers and massive amounts of data. Dr. Lee had assembled his team. Dr. Park, the epidemiologist, Dr. Ba, the geneticist, Jin, the data analyst, and several others with unique skills. "The samples must remain in maximum containment," Song warned. "The pathogen targets Tellurian neural structure, but we cannot risk mutation." Dr. Lee nodded. "We'll take every precaution. Now show us everything you know about this plague." For hours, the humans reviewed the Tellurian data. The aliens' research was incredibly detailed, showing every aspect of the pathogen's structure and behavior. Their testing methodology was perfect, too perfect, Lee thought. "You've been very thorough," Dr. Ba said. "But I'm not seeing any unexpected approaches. Everything follows standard protocols." Captain Kim seemed offended. "Our protocols are the result of thousands of years of scientific advancement." "That's the problem," Jin said, looking up from his screens. "You've done everything by the book, but sometimes you need to throw the book away." Song tilted her head. "Explain." Dr. Lee stepped in. "What Jin means is that sometimes breakthrough discoveries come from unusual approaches, happy accidents, failed experiments that show unexpected results." "Inefficiency," Captain Kim said with disapproval. "Creativity," Dr. Lee corrected. As the humans continued reviewing the data, they began to see patterns the Tellurians had missed, not because the aliens weren't intelligent, but because they weren't looking for the unexpected. That night, as the team finally took a break, Dr. Lee stood outside the facility, looking up at the stars. Somewhere up there were 17 dying worlds waiting for a miracle. "We'll help you," he whispered to the sky. Somehow, behind him, Captain Kim appeared. The Tellurian's voice was quiet. Elder Hand believed humans would see what we could not. I thought it was desperation. Perhaps it was wisdom. Don't hope too much yet, Lee cautioned. We've just begun. Hope. Kim repeated the word carefully. An emotional concept, not a scientific one. Lee smiled. Maybe that's exactly what you need most. News of the aliens spread quickly. At first, many people didn't believe it. Then, as videos and photos appeared online, the world changed forever. Humans were not alone in the universe. Governments around the world argued about what to do. Some wanted to help the Tellurians. Others feared the aliens might bring danger. But Dr. Lee and his team didn't have time for politics. They were racing against death. Their biological structure is fascinating, Dr. Ba said as she studied the Tellurian DNA samples. Their neural pathways are more complex than ours, but also more organized. Dr. Park nodded. That might be why this pathogen is so deadly to them. It attacks that organization. It creates chaos in a system that needs perfect order. Jin was working through the massive data files the Tellurians had brought. Their research is amazing, but predictable. Every test follows exact patterns. They never try random approaches. Dr. Lee looked at the Tellurian samples under a powerful microscope. Maybe that's why they can't solve this. The pathogen doesn't follow rules. It changes in ways they don't expect. Medical Officer Song watched the humans work. Their lab seemed messy and disorganized compared to Tellurian facilities. Humans moved around, talked over each other, and sometimes even argued loudly. But there was energy in their chaos. Your methods are unusual, Song told Dr. Lee. Our scientists would never work this way. Lee smiled. Humans have always made discoveries by accident. Penicillin, X-rays, microwave ovens. Sometimes the best findings come when you're looking for something else entirely. Captain Kim entered the lab, his face showing concern. Elder Han reports 3 more colony worlds have gone silent. Millions more are dead. The room fell quiet. The human scientists felt the weight of those distant deaths. We need to try something different, Dr. Lee said finally. Something your scientists would never consider. A week later, a young researcher named Hyun joined the team. She didn't have the experience of the others, but she had unique knowledge. My grandmother was a traditional medicine practitioner, she explained to Song. She taught me about natural remedies from plants, fungi, and sea creatures. Song tilted her head in confusion. You are suggesting ancient practices when advanced technology is available. Sometimes old knowledge holds surprising value, Hyun said. Nature has spent billions of years solving problems through evolution. We just need to find the right solutions. Dr. Lee supported Hyun's approach. Let's look at Earth organisms that have unusual defensive abilities. Deep sea creatures. Extremophiles. Plants with strong immune responses. Captain Kim was skeptical. This seems primitive. Sometimes primitive works, Dr. Lee replied. The team began collecting samples from across Earth. Plants from rainforests. Fungi from caves. Bacteria from hot springs. They tested thousands of compounds against the Tellurian pathogen. Meanwhile, Dr. Ba focused on genetic approaches. We need to understand how this pathogen evolves so quickly. If we can predict its changes, we might stay ahead of it. Jin created new computer models. Unlike the perfect Tellurian systems, his programs included random factors and chaotic elements. We need to think like the virus, he explained, not like logical scientists. Days turned into weeks. The humans worked around the clock. Reports from Tellurian worlds grew worse. The plague was spreading faster. One morning, after working through the night, Hyun rushed into the main lab. Her eyes were wide with excitement. Look at this, she said, pointing to her screen. These compounds from deep-sea organisms show activity against the pathogen. Dr. Lee examined her data. These are from extremophiles, creatures that live near underwater volcanic vents. They've evolved to survive in impossible conditions. Dr. Ba joined them. And look at their molecular structure. It's like nothing in the Tellurian database. Their scientists would never have thought to test something so strange. Will it work as a treatment? Song asked, hope rising in her voice. Not yet, Dr. Lee said, but it's affected the pathogen more than anything else we've tried. It's a start. Dr. Ba had another breakthrough. Using CRISPR technology, she had found a way to modify the Tellurian immune response. If we combine these approaches, we might have something. The team worked for 3 more days without sleep. They combined Hyun's compounds with Dr. Ba's genetic technique. Then they tested it on infected Tellurian tissue samples. Look, Dr. Park pointed at the screen. The pathogen was stopping its spread. Some infected cells were recovering. Song's hands trembled as she examined the results. This might actually work. Captain Kim, who had remained doubtful, stood silently watching the data. Finally, he spoke. How did you find this solution when our best scientists could not? Jin smiled. We weren't looking for the perfect answer. We were trying anything that might work, even things that seemed illogical, added Hyun. That is not how science is supposed to function, Captain Kim said. Dr. Lee shrugged. Human science has always had room for intuition, lucky accidents, and wild guesses. Sometimes they lead nowhere. Sometimes they save lives. The treatment wasn't perfect. It needed refinement, testing, and then mass production. But it worked. The pathogen couldn't evolve fast enough to overcome the combined approach. Elder Han himself traveled to Earth when he heard the news. His ship landed near the research facility, and humans gathered to see the Tellurian leader. You have done what we thought impossible, Han told the team. His voice was formal, but his 4 hands shook with emotion. Our greatest minds, our most advanced AI systems, failed. Yet you found a path forward with far less technology. Different thinking, not better thinking, Dr. Lee said modestly. Perhaps. Elder Han bowed slightly. But the result speaks for itself. You have saved not just lives, but an entire civilization. The real challenge was still ahead. The treatment needed to reach billions of Tellurians across 17 star systems. Some colonies were already in chaos, their infrastructure collapsing as the plague spread. We need to produce enough medicine for an entire interstellar civilization, Dr. Park said. Earth doesn't have the capacity. But we have the knowledge now, Captain Kim said. His attitude had changed completely. Our production facilities can be converted. Our ships can distribute the treatment. We just need your continued guidance. Dr. Lee looked at his team. They were exhausted but proud. We'll help you implement this on a galactic scale, but we'll need more people. When the call went out for volunteers, the response was overwhelming. Doctors, nurses, logistics experts, and countless others stepped forward. Humanity was ready to help their new alien allies. I didn't expect this, Song told Dr. Lee as they watched volunteers arriving. Your people barely know us. Why would they help? It's what humans do, Lee said simply. When hope seems lost, we find ways to create more of it. For the first time since arriving on Earth, Song smiled. It was an expression Tellurians rarely used. Perhaps that is what our people need most. Not just medicine for our bodies, but hope for our spirits. The work to save the Tellurian Alliance had only just begun. But already, both species were learning from each other in ways neither had imagined possible. 3 months after the breakthrough, the first human delegation visited the Tellurian homeworld. Dr. Lee, Dr. Ba, and several other key team members made the journey aboard Captain Kim's ship. The trip took only 2 days thanks to Tellurian faster-than-light technology. As they approached the blue-green planet, Dr. Lee pressed his face to the viewing window. It's beautiful, he said. Captain Kim nodded. It is called Teller Prime. For 2,000 years, it has been the center of our civilization. The planet looked surprisingly like Earth, with oceans and continents. But the cities were different. Tellurian buildings rose in perfect geometric patterns, with nothing out of place. Everything seemed designed for maximum efficiency. Our cities reflect our thinking, Song explained. Order, logic, precision. They're amazing, Dr. Ba said. But where are your parks? Your art districts? Song looked confused. Those are not efficient uses of space. The humans exchanged glances. There was still much to learn about each other. The cure was working. Production facilities across the Tellurian Alliance were making the treatment, and the plague's spread had slowed dramatically. But the aliens now faced new problems. Our medical systems are overwhelmed, Elder Han explained during a meeting. Millions have survived but need ongoing care. And many colonies have lost key personnel. We need more than just medicine, Dr. Lee said. You need help rebuilding your society. In response, Earth sent thousands of volunteers. Doctors and nurses treated the sick. Engineers helped repair damaged infrastructure. Teachers worked with Tellurian children who had lost parents to the plague. Nurse Min specialized in mental health. She found that Tellurians struggling to recover had no framework for dealing with grief and trauma. You suppress your emotions too much, she told a group of Tellurian medical staff. Feelings are not inefficient. They are necessary for healing. Our society values logic above all else, one Tellurian doctor replied. Emotions cloud judgment. But they also connect people, Min said gently. Connection is what helps us survive tragedy. Slowly, the Tellurians began to understand. They watched how humans comforted each other, how they shared stories of loss and recovery, how they used art and music to express feelings too complex for words. Captain Kim and Dr. Lee had become close friends. They often walked together through the capital city, discussing the changes happening in both their worlds. Your people have given us more than medicine, Kim said one evening. You've shown us different ways to think, to feel, to live. Lee smiled. And your technology is helping Earth in countless ways. The clean energy systems alone will solve our climate crisis. A fair exchange, Kim agreed, though some of my people fear too much change. He was right. A group of Tellurians called the Purists had begun protesting the human presence. They believed alien influence would corrupt their perfect society. The humans bring chaos and disorder, their leader, Director Jun, declared in public speeches. Their medicine saved us, but now they must leave. The situation grew tense when a treatment facility was sabotaged. No one was hurt, but valuable medicine was destroyed. Elder Han called an emergency meeting with the human delegation. We cannot allow violence, he said, but the Purists' concerns must be addressed. Dr. Lee nodded. We don't want to change who you are. We just want to help. Perhaps there is a balance to be found, Captain Kim suggested. Together, they developed a new approach. Humans would train Tellurians to take over all essential roles. Cultural consultants like Jun would help both species understand each other better. And a clear timeline was set for when the humans would return home. Director Jun was invited to oversee the process, giving the Purists a voice in protecting Tellurian traditions. We don't need to become like each other, Lee told Jun. We just need to learn from each other. Meanwhile, something unexpected was happening across Tellurian worlds. Aliens who had worked closely with humans began adopting Earth customs. Some Tellurians started creating art for the first time in centuries. Others began holding community gatherings that included music and storytelling. Schools introduced creative problem-solving alongside traditional logical education. It's fascinating, Dr. Bai told Captain Kim as they observed a group of Tellurian children drawing pictures. Your species is naturally logical, but you have the capacity for creativity too. Perhaps we suppressed those tendencies in our pursuit of perfect order, Kim replied. Now we are finding balance. The changes went both ways. Humans learned precision and thoroughness from the Tellurians. Earth technologies became more efficient, and human medicine advanced rapidly with alien knowledge. Elder Han addressed the United Nations on Earth, the first alien to do so. The event was broadcast worldwide. 100 days ago, we came to Earth as dying strangers, he said. Today, we stand before you as living allies. You gave us not just medicine for our bodies, but hope for our spirits. Both were necessary for survival. He raised all four of his hands in a traditional Tellurian gesture of respect. We offer in return our knowledge, our technology, and our friendship. Together, we will build a future neither of us could have imagined alone. The alliance between humans and Tellurians was formalized in a treaty called the Hope Accord. It promised mutual aid, knowledge exchange, and peaceful cooperation. Dr. Lee sat on a bench in the New Earth Tellurian Cultural Center, watching humans and aliens moving through the halls together. Captain Kim joined him. "What are you thinking?" Kim asked. "About how close your people came to extinction," Lee replied, "and how something good has come from that terrible crisis." Kim nodded. "Before the plague, we would never have contacted Earth. We thought we had nothing to learn from less advanced species, and we might have feared aliens if you'd contacted us in normal circumstances." Lee said, "Crisis created opportunity." A group of Tellurian children approached them, led by a human teacher. The children were holding artwork they had created, colorful drawings showing humans and Tellurians together. "Would you like to see what we made?" one child asked. The simple question would have been unthinkable in traditional Tellurian society, where children spoke only when spoken to. "We would be honored," Lee said, smiling. As they looked at the children's artwork, Lee noticed something interesting. The Tellurian children had drawn humans with 4 arms, and the human children had given themselves blue skin in their pictures. "They're adopting elements of each other," he whispered to Kim. The Tellurian captain watched the mixed group with wonder. "Not becoming the same," he said, "but learning to see themselves in each other." On the wall behind them hung a simple plaque commemorating the first contact. It read, "When hope seemed lost, we found it in the most unexpected place, each other." The plague that had threatened to destroy the Tellurian alliance had instead created something new. Not just survival, but transformation. And the journey was just beginning. 5 years passed since the first contact between humans and Tellurians. The plague that had threatened to destroy the Tellurian alliance was now just a dark memory. But its effects had changed both civilizations forever. Dr. Lee stood on the observation deck of the Moon Academy, watching Earth rise over the lunar horizon. The huge dome around him was filled with students from both worlds. Young humans and Tellurians studied side by side, sharing knowledge and culture. Still enjoying the view, Captain Kim asked as he joined his friend. Kim no longer commanded just one ship. He was now Admiral Kim, head of the joint Earth-Tellurian space fleet. "Every time," Lee replied with a smile. "I never thought I'd see our worlds connected like this." The Moon Academy was the most visible symbol of the alliance between the two species. Here, humans learned advanced Tellurian science and technology, while Tellurians studied human creativity, arts, and alternative problem-solving approaches. "The new students arrive tomorrow," Kim said. "The biggest class yet." Lee nodded. "And not just humans and Tellurians this time." That was the most surprising development of the past year. Other alien civilizations had begun reaching out. The Galactic Council, which had previously ignored Earth as too primitive, had taken notice of what humans and Tellurians had accomplished together. Back on Earth, Hyun, whose deep-sea compounds had helped create the cure, now led the Global Health Initiative. The program used combined human-Tellurian medical knowledge to eliminate diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries. "Malaria is officially gone," she announced to her team. "The last case was cured last week in Central Africa." Dr. Ba looked up from her genetic research. "That's the 5th major disease we've eliminated this year. And the new cancer treatment is showing a 98% success rate," added Jin, who now coordinated the global medical data network. The clean energy systems from Tellurian technology had transformed Earth's environment. Pollution had dropped dramatically. Cities were cleaner and healthier. Poverty was decreasing as energy became almost free. But Earth wasn't the only world changing. Tellurian society had been transformed as well. On Teller Prime, The perfect geometric cities now included parks and art centers. Tellurian children played games that encouraged both logical thinking and creative imagination. Music, absent from their culture for centuries, once again filled public spaces. Elder Han, now in his final year before retirement, walked with Dr. Park through the capital's new cultural district. "I sometimes wonder if the purists were right to worry," he said. "We are becoming something different than we were." "All living things must adapt or stagnate," Park replied. "Your society isn't becoming human. It's becoming more fully Tellurian by embracing parts of yourselves you had forgotten." Han nodded slowly. "Perhaps. The young ones certainly seem happier than my generation ever was. They feel more, but they also think more deeply." The data supported this observation. Tellurian scientific achievements had actually increased since the cultural exchange began. Their logical precision, combined with new creative approaches, was solving problems their society had struggled with for generations. Director June, once the leader of the purists, had reluctantly admitted the benefits. "We have not lost our identity," she had said in a recent speech. "We have expanded it." The greatest test of the new alliance came unexpectedly. Astronomical observatories detected a strange anomaly at the center of the galaxy, a distortion in spacetime that was growing rapidly. Scientists from both worlds worked together to understand the threat. They determined that the anomaly was expanding and would eventually threaten multiple star systems, including both Earth and the Tellurian worlds. "Traditional approaches won't work," Admiral Kim told the Emergency Council meeting. "We need something new." The solution they developed combined Tellurian precision technology with human intuitive leaps. Dr. Lee and a team of Tellurian scientists designed gravity wave generators that could stabilize the anomaly. Admiral Kim would lead the fleet to place them at precise points around the distortion. "It's never been attempted," Kim told Lee before departing. "But I trust our combined knowledge." The mission was dangerous. The ships would need to operate at the edge of a space-time distortion that could destroy them instantly. "Be careful, old friend," Lee said, gripping Kim's upper right hand in the traditional Tellurian farewell gesture. "Always," Kim replied, surprising Lee with a human hug. The joint fleet departed with crews of both species working together. For 3 weeks, Earth and the Tellurian worlds waited anxiously for news. When the fleet finally returned, Admiral Kim addressed both civilizations in a historic broadcast. "The anomaly has been contained," he announced. "The gravity wave generators are functioning perfectly. Not only have we saved our own worlds, but also 12 other inhabited systems that would have been affected." What few knew was how close they had come to failure. During the mission, the original plan had proven insufficient. It was a young human Tellurian team on one of the ships who had suggested the crucial modification that made success possible. "Neither of us could have done this alone," Kim told Lee afterward. "The precise calculations needed Tellurian minds, but the creative leap came from human intuition. Together, we found the answer." 10 years after first contact, Elder Han gave his final address before retiring. Leaders from Earth and all 17 Tellurian worlds gathered to hear him speak. "When the plague threatened our existence, we broke our oldest law and reached out to humans," he began. "We expected, at best, to find a cure. Instead, we found partners who changed our understanding of what was possible." He gestured to the assembled delegates with all 4 arms. "Today, our alliance is stronger than ever before. Our science has advanced more in 10 years than in the previous 100. Our culture is richer and more vibrant, and we are no longer alone in the galaxy." Representatives from 3 other alien civilizations sat in the audience, there to discuss joining the expanding alliance. "Humans did not just deliver hope when we needed it most," Han continued. "They showed us that diversity of thought leads to strength, not weakness. That emotion and logic together create more than either can alone. That reaching out to others, even when it seems risky, can bring rewards beyond imagination." After the ceremony, Dr. Lee and Admiral Kim walked together through the memorial garden. At its center stood 2 identical monuments, one on Earth and one on Teller Prime, connected through a live holographic link, so visitors at either location could see and speak to those at the other. Did you ever imagine this outcome when you first saw us in your lab? Kim asked. Lee laughed. I was too busy being terrified of blue four-armed aliens to think that far ahead. They stopped before the simple stone monument. On it was carved a message in both human and Tellurian languages. When we reached across the stars in our darkest hour, we found not just a cure, but a future brighter than we could imagine. Children from both worlds played together nearby, their laughter mixing in the air. Some of them would grow up to crew the first joint deep space exploration vessels. Others would create new art forms blending the aesthetics of both worlds. All would live in a galaxy more connected and hopeful than the one they were born into. The younger generation doesn't even remember when we were separate, Lee observed. That is perhaps our greatest success, Kim replied. To them, working together is simply the natural order of things. As the two friends watched the sunset, news arrived that a young research team, half human, half Tellurian, had just made a breakthrough in dimensional physics that might eventually allow travel to other galaxies. What do you think we'll find out there? Lee asked, looking up at the stars. I don't know, Kim said, but I'm certain we'll face it together. The plague that had once threatened to end the Tellurian civilization had instead begun something new. Not just an alliance between two worlds, but a transformation that was spreading throughout the galaxy, one star at a time. Hope, delivered beyond all expectation.